Hi, my name is Kristen Allman. I just graduated from Leland High School and I'm going to be going to UC Berkeley. I've been coming to St. Andrews for almost 3 years now, and I honestly can't remember who I was without this place. I had an amazing childhood with an extraordinary family, and my friends growing up were everything I needed. But by the time I was 15, I was ready for something more. I was ready to grow up, and St. Andrews was the best place for me to discover and then strive to become the person I desired to be. The simple act of coming to church was not what changed my life. It's true that I've been at this church for 3 years, but sometimes I only really count the most recent 2 years. The first year was still extremely important. I can especially recognize its place in my life as I reflect upon my time here. During that year, I came to church fairly regularly. I was baptized with my sisters and confirmed. At the time, it was the most spiritual time in my life. I learned about the faith I had always identified with, and I felt thankful that I had decided to explore this before-neglected area of my life. But that year was really just a precursor, a setup to the real changes I would go through the following summer. Although I had no idea what I was doing at the time, I dove in headfirst anyway. When I was given the opportunity to apply to be a counselor at Camp St. Andrews, I took it. Ever since going to science camp as a 5th grader, I'd wanted to be a camp counselor, so I was extremely excited. Looking back, I realized how I had absolutely no idea what I was getting myself into. I remember my surprise at how closely knit the camp community was when I went to the first training. When I had signed up, I had no idea that the great majority of the staff and counselors had been coming to camp for 10, 20, or even 30 years. I had never before encountered this sort of community, and I longed to be accepted as part of it. I remember feeling intimidated. Who was I anyway? It's not easy going off to work at a camp where half the campers had been coming to camp longer than I had. But I took risks, I put myself out there more than I had ever before, and I tried my hardest to really be my best self all week for the sake of my campers and my fellow counselors. And the most miraculous and amazing thing was how quickly I felt accepted and loved. I met some of the most extraordinary people that week, and the beautiful thing about camp is, despite our varying ages and other differences, camp and our shared experiences keep us together as close friends. Camp is only 1 week out of the entire year, but it is something that affects my life on a daily basis. The entire week at camp, I felt comfortable enough to be myself. I already felt like I was part of something, even if I was still learning my way around. The main reason I already felt at home was because of Scarf. Now, I've already expressed how, going into camp, I had no idea what I was getting into. Scarf was a similar situation, except 10 million times more intense. At camp training, Sue Mack pulled me aside and asked me if I'd like to accept a Scarf challenge as a new addition to the camp family. I remember not quite understanding, thinking it was a little bizarre, but at the same time looking forward to a new and interesting experience. Our first day up at camp and the day before the campers arrived was when the ceremony for the blue scarf was. Throughout the day of training up at the actual campsite, I began to get my first sense of what scarf was. Everyone wore a scarf. There were 7 different colors, and it was a stepladder system. So as a first-year counselor, if I chose to receive a scarf, I would be able to accept my blue scarf and not any of the other colors just yet. Each represented a challenge that the wearer had chosen to take on for the coming year and thereafter. The scarf itself is just an external representation of this internal challenge. As you continue to challenge yourself, the challenges become more difficult, and the ceremonies become more personal and emotional. It only works because everyone at camp takes it so seriously. Scarf is truly what ties the camp community together. This is why accepting my first challenge was so monumental. Although the challenge itself benefited me greatly, and the ceremony was a moving experience, the part of what I went through that most affected me was the presence of the people who accompanied me. This community didn't know me whatsoever, but the love and acceptance I felt through that first blue scarf ceremony changed me deeply. I have accepted 2 more scarf challenges since that first blue scarf, and I really view those 3 scarves as markers along my continuing course to become a better person. Before I went to camp, by the end of that first year, all the elements were already there. I was at St. Andrews, I'd been baptized and confirmed, so I was now familiar with the technical aspects of Christianity, and I had the desire to learn and grow. I had actively sought out a place to develop my spirituality, and during confirmation class, I actively learned about Christianity. But even with this action, I still consider this first year before camp a passive phase of my time here. It wasn't until becoming a part until becoming a part of the camp community and Scarf Society that I became motivated to be an active member of the church and youth group. After camp, I was part of St. Andrew's Church because it was something I wanted and needed to do. This is where my friends were and are, and Sunday is my time to be with them. As children and young teenagers, we were taught about Christianity and faith by our parents and churches. But at some point during adolescence, one realizes that faith and spirituality cannot really be taught. You can't teach love, or God, or community. The only way to learn is to experience. Those early lessons finally play their role only when someone is finally enlightened through experience and everything just clicks together. Everyone has his or her own spirituality. Even though we all identify as Christians and Episcopalians here, each one of us has had a different life and therefore a unique faith with distinctive reasons for individual beliefs. But despite all of our differences, we are still united in the loving community of this church. This is my last Sunday at St. Andrews for a while. In just a few days, I make the move to UC Berkeley, and after that, I'll begin my freshman year. I will miss being a regular at this 10 a.m. service and lunch afterwards, but I am confident in the relationships I've made over the past 2 years. I've learned so much about love, community, and service during my transition into adulthood, and I know that these values have been cemented into my personality for life. Thank you.